Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Dribble Drive podcast. I'm your host, Austin Render. Dalton is on the road today with Michigan State women's basketball. So subbing in for Dalton today is Talia Goodman from On3. Talia, thanks so much for joining us. Are you sleeping at all right now in the midst of what John Rothstein says we sleep in May? Are you sleeping at all right now?
Very little, which is why right before this I went and I got my coffee to keep me awake today. Hopefully, it's craziness, but I'm happy. The games I'm going to are the kind of second set of games, so I have an extra day of relaxation before I got to get on the road.
Are you going to Louisville?
I'm going to Louisville, so
Okay.
it should be some good games.
Very nice. Okay, I don't think there's any Big Ten teams involved in the Louisville bracket, so we'll let you enjoy that one. We're going to talk a lot of Big Ten, but first, just a reminder: give us a subscribe on the Back Home Network YouTube channel. Download our episodes on Apple and Spotify podcast. You can follow along with us on social media as well. Dribble Drive WBB on both X and Instagram. Trying to keep that content going through the NCAA Tournament. Thanks to those of you who are watching us live. You can always catch us live on the Back Home Network YouTube channel. If you've got questions you want us to talk about, drop them in the chat. We will get to those through the episode today. Talia, I want to start. We obviously didn't have any games between our last podcast and now, so it's more about what the committee has come up with. We're going to talk all about the bracket. It was Saturday afternoon. They released the initial 16-team reveal of the host schools in alphabetical order. Then they gave us the seeds the next day. First off, that's new, right? Doing it that way?
That is new. I learned about that at the mock selection they told us this year. And my first thought was, why? Like, why do we need to do that, I guess? Takes away a lot of the fun from Selection Sunday, I guess. But it's good logistically to have a better sense of teams who need to prepare to host. And, you know, for me, I knew like I was kind of planning on going to Kentucky if they were going to host. And I knew I was not going there a day early. So that was nice.
So then we get the alphabetical order release. And in the M's, I thought the M's was where we were really paying attention to because you had Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota. We talked about it last week. We thought on the podcast the last spot was going to come down to Kentucky, Minnesota, or Michigan State. And Minnesota got that spot, but then Maryland was also out, and UNC jumped into the picture. So you are more of a national scope with all of this. Give us the North Carolina pitch. How did they sneak in? What did Maryland do that kicked them out? Because they were 13th in the last reveal 2 weeks before this reveal. They did lose one and done in Indianapolis, but then they dropped 5 spots and fall out. So give the Big Ten people the North Carolina side of this and how they ended up getting in.
I mean, this is actually the one thing Big Ten wise that I disagreed with the committee on. Like pretty much the only thing when it comes to seeding, when it comes to anything. I thought Maryland deserved to be in there. I did not have North Carolina hosting. And I think for me, I didn't think they would host because the ACC is not super strong this year. There aren't a lot of resume wins to be earned. They did play a fairly tough non-conference schedule, not necessarily for the casual fan, but they played some good mid-majors. Like they had a good non-con schedule, but the one time I saw them, so maybe this is why I'm skewed. The one time I saw them was an overtime loss to Stanford that they did not look great. And so I was like, well, I just don't think this team is like a hosting caliber team. I had them in my top 25, longer than anyone after that. So I'm shocked that after falling so far, they were able to win their way back in without, they had like one big time win, which is great. But I think Maryland has had a few of those too. And I think the committee probably didn't take into account as much as they should have the skid that Maryland went on, after the injuries and trying to adjust. And so I think that it kind of similarly with Kentucky, we kind of saw that part play out.
Yeah, Maryland was sitting at 3-6 in the Big Ten. They had lost, I think, 4 or 5 in a row at that point. And then they got rolling. They only lost one game down the stretch. It was at Michigan. Then, of course, they lose. It almost feels like, man, little did you know that Oregon game was kind of a potential play-in opportunity for Maryland. They let that slip away in the fourth quarter. Minnesota does get in, though, which I was saying last week, I felt like if it came down to Minnesota versus Michigan State, despite the head-to-head, which is weird because Minnesota did not have the head-to-head over Michigan State or Maryland, They get in both of them, but I did feel like they were playing much better basketball than Michigan State was. And that was my argument, was almost more of the eye test situation with Minnesota. What'd you think of the Gophers grabbing one of those final spots?
Yeah, I also had Minnesota over Michigan State. I didn't predict them to be hosting, but I wasn't surprised, and I don't think it was a bad call by the committee necessarily. I think they have been playing much better basketball. I think they kind of go underlooked all year. Which is crazy to me. I actually originally had them in my preseason poll at like 16 or 17, which is kind of around where they ended up. So I'm glad they earned their way back in there. And yeah, I think they've looked really good. I think they have the potential to make some noise in the tournament. I think they have a fun first round matchup. And so I'm excited to see if they're able to kind of prove that they deserved that hosting spot, right?
Dalton and I have been flying their flag for all season. I just think what Don Plutz-White has done there with all the injuries in the first two seasons and nearly making the tournament in both of them, and then this year jumping into a hosting spot. She's done such a great job there. So as you said, they've got some exciting matchups. UCLA gets the number 2 overall. I wasn't surprised by this. I know you've kind of been talking like, hey, UConn is number 1. But
I knew they weren't going to get it. I knew there was like no possibility that the committee would give it to them. But if I were the committee, I would give it to them.
The resume is hard to argue with UCLA. I mean, their quad 1 efforts this season are just unbelievable. And what they did in the non-con, the way they scheduled, they went 19-1 in quadrant 1 games this season, whereas UConn had a 9-0 record, playing 13 quad 4 games and 20 quad 3 and 4. Now, part of that is conferences. The Big East is not nearly as strong as the Big Ten. So day in and day out, UCLA is getting better opportunities, but it's part of what you sign up for in the conference that you're in. And again, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think. Did you notice anything on the draws that made you wonder, if they had flipped, UCLA would have been better off?
Nothing would have changed at all because the first overall seed gets to pick what region they want to be in. They would have picked Sacramento anyway. So they would have ended up in the exact same spot. Well, they don't get to pick, but they end up in the one closest to them. That's the whole,
Can we talk about how there's neither one of those are east of the Mississippi? Like, we really couldn't have found anything on the east side of the United States to host the third and fourth rounds. Like,
you know what? I was at first upset about it, but now I'm excited. It's like 30 degrees here. I'm excited to get to some better weather.
That's true. That is fair. So Fort Worth and Sacramento are the 2 hosting spots there for the Sweet 16, the Elite 8. All right, we have a bracket. I don't physically have it with me. It's somewhere. But we have a bracket, Talia. What were your first thoughts when you saw this bracket? This is a very overarching question. But when it came out, and this can be Big Ten, that can be nationally related, what were some of the initial thoughts you had that popped into your head when you saw that bracket announced?
I mean, the first one was like, why do we have so many regular season rematches? Like, I'm not mad about it, but it feels weird. Like, that's kind of a principle, and we have a bunch of them either in the first or second round. So I'm like, what's going on there? Like, good TV, sure, but like, will the results be any different? Maybe for 1 or 2 of them, probably not drastically. I thought that was interesting. I thought there were a couple teams whose like seeding I didn't expect. None really in the Big Ten. Clemson was one who I thought would probably be around a 10 seed. They're going to play USC as a 8, and USC is the 9, which is a bad draw for both teams, unfortunately, being an 8-9 in that region. So that'll be tough. Yeah, I mean, I didn't disagree with them on a ton other than the actual bracketing of it all and the matchups.
Nebraska makes it in. That was one of the Big Ten bubble questions. And it felt like when they lost to Indiana, I initially thought, okay, that might be it. Their bubble might have popped. And then you look at Charlie Cream's bracketology, and they didn't drop out. And all week, they just kind of hung there. And there weren't a bunch of bid stealers. There wasn't like the bubble was, let's be honest, relatively weak this season, I thought, at least. And so Nebraska gets in, and they are now in the first 4. They're going to be the first game we're going to talk about here in a second because they play tonight against Richmond. But your thoughts on Nebraska sneaking in? Arizona State sneaks in. Like, what were your thoughts of the bubble?
Arizona State, heck yeah. Saw them last week. They deserve to be there. They had a couple good wins in the Big 12 tournament. What Molly Miller has done there has been so impressive. Nebraska, less impressive. They've definitely underachieved this year. I expected them to be a lot better than they have been. They just don't really have the resume. You know, they have the talent. Like, you look at that roster top to bottom, and they have a lot of it. They're well coached. They have really good players, and you've seen kind of like spurts of good stuff from them, but you haven't really seen it in the moments that matter. So I was kind of indifferent about them making it in. I thought, kind of, if you look at them versus BYU, it's like either one I'm fine with. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see because, and I wrote this in something I wrote up after the bracket was released. Like, Richmond is also like another team that I feel like maybe underachieved a little bit this year. So this really is like a true first four, and that it's like whoever deserves to be in the tournament will earn that chance.
Well, if you want to hear more of Dalton and I's thoughts on the bubbles cases, go back and listen to the last episode. We won't make Nebraska fans have to live through more of should they or should they not have been in. They're in. They are there, and they are going to play tonight against Richmond. It's the first game we're going to discuss here. You just mentioned a little bit on Richmond, a team that also kind of we thought would be pretty solid before the season. They're sitting here now with a matchup against Nebraska. I did a little deep dive into this. Obviously, there's a couple of really good scores on Richmond. They shoot the three ball really well. Neither team is all that great defensively, so we could see a lot of points in this game. What do you feel like could decide this first four matchup?
2 words: Maggie Dugan. That kid can go crazy. She's a like legit WNBA like prospect to me. Like, I'd be shocked if a team didn't try to pick her up. And what she's done and how she has stayed at Richmond, like, she could be anywhere right now. She could have left and gone anywhere in the country. She's at Richmond. They were able to force an upset last year in the tournament. And they have a lot of the same pieces. Like, they got some new ones, but they have some vets on this team that know what it's like to be in this situation. Obviously, they weren't in the first four last year. But I was really glad they got in the tournament because I think it's just, they're such fun basketball. And I would have been so sad if I didn't have one more chance to watch Maggie Dugan in the NCAA tournament. So I think it's a really fun one with them and Nebraska. I think Nebraska is a little bit more about like their young talent developing right now. So like, I think it could be a close matchup, and it's kind of a toss-up for me and who I think will take it. It really is.
So Maggie Dugan for the Big Ten folks, 21 points, nearly 8 rebounds a game, 50% from the floor, and 40% from three. She's going to be a difficult. Yeah, go ahead.
Go look at her stats from the 3 overtime Davidson game earlier this year. Read those. Oh, that game was insane. Like, that's like Maggie Dugan is on a lot of people's radars now. So I think Nebraska, knows who she is and will be ready for her too, though.
Okay, so now I'm pulling it up here. So a Davidson Richmond game. How about 48 points, 17 of 28 from the floor, 8 of 12 from the 3-point line. So she's very capable. She's probably going to be matched up. Does she play their 5 or more of their 4?
She does everything. I mean, like,
okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to put probably Hargrove on her, probably, if you're Nebraska?
We'll see. That game's in a few hours. We don't have to wait too long to find out.
That's true. We're going to find out in 7 hours time here. Yeah. It's in Cameron Indoor Stadium. Winner gets Baylor in the second round. We'll talk about the second round coming up here in a second. But one thing to note, Nebraska defensively down the stretch of the season, their numbers have really slid in this 7 losses in their last 9. They are now 355th in the country in opponent field goal percentage. Meanwhile, Richmond is 9th best in the country at 3-point shooting. They average 10.5 3-pointers made a game. They take the 3rd most threes in the country. 45% of their possessions result in 3-pointers, and 43% of their points come from beyond the arc. So
can I guess who takes more? You said 3rd in the country at taking threes. Is it?
They are 3rd in 3-point rate. Yes.
I feel if I had to take a guess, I would go Tennessee is number 1 maybe, and
hold on, I can get you number 1. I can't get you. I can't get you number 2, but I can get you number 1. 3-point rate. The top team in the country is Montana.
Really?
46.8% of their possessions are 3-pointers.
Go off, Montana. All right.
There you go. So Montana leads it, but Richmond is right there. They're going to take a ton of threes, and let's be honest, It's how Indiana came back and beat Nebraska in the second half of that Big Ten tournament game, was they got hot from beyond the arc. So Nebraska is going to have to be better defensively against the three-pointer. I got to be honest, I think I favor Richmond here. And I know we're a Big Ten women's basketball podcast, so the pitchforks are probably out from the Husker fans, but just there's two things here. It's the ability of Richmond to score the basketball against the Nebraska defense that's struggling, and a Nebraska team that's just coming in struggling. They've lost 7 of their 9 games. Now, hopefully, they've used these 2 weeks off to kind of reset and be like, all right, we've got new life, new season. We're in the NCAA tournament. There's not any of that hanging doubt. You could kind of feel that at the end of the Nebraska-Indiana game of how tight Nebraska got, and I think how much pressure they were playing under. Now they should be freed up. Like, hey, we made it. Nothing else to think about other than to go and beat Richmond. But I do think the Spiders might have a little bit more in that offensive punch, especially with Dugan being a mismatch against Nebraska.
No, I agree. And there aren't a ton of mid-major leagues that I would say prepare you for this moment, but the A10 is one of them for Richmond. I think it's really competitive, especially at the top. There's 4 or 5 teams that are kind of in the mix to make the tournament every year. And I actually just heard a clip of their head coach, Aaron, talking about what he did on the scheduling front this year, which I haven't heard before and I thought was so interesting. Super off topic, my bad. But
that's what podcasts are for.
He was saying how it's not, you don't play every team once or whatever, or you don't play every team twice in the A10. So he went to the league and asked if he could have all of the top teams twice and if he could play them all on the road to help their net, essentially, to help their metrics to get them into the tournament, which I think is so smart and kind of just showcases how that helped them this year, because they weren't necessarily a lock to get in. And I'm sure that SOS, that strength of schedule, did help them. Interesting
thought process there for the Richmond Spiders. No matter what, I think this is going to be a great game, and it's going to kick off the women's NCAA tournament tonight at 7:00 on ESPN2. All right, let's jump to Friday. We've got the first game of the Big Ten, and it's going to be Virginia Tech against Oregon in an 8-9 game. I know Oregon fans were hoping that the work they did in Indianapolis would get them to a 7. Some bracketologists had them there. They ultimately end up as an 8. They're going to play Virginia Tech here in Austin, Texas. Oregon's a team that I've had a hard time figuring out this season. I think they're better than their Big Ten record at 8-10, but they've also had moments where they've kind of had some head scratchers. The loss at Indiana, they did not have Mia Jacobs in that game, so that was certainly a factor. But I think Oregon, when healthy, is a very good team. They're much more offensively inclined this season than maybe they were last season. And yet even last season, I was not high on that Oregon team going into the tournament. And then they nearly beat Duke and nearly got to the Sweet 16. So I think Kelly Graves, he's been there. He's done that. He's going to have this team ready to go. Give us the Virginia Tech side of this matchup, Talia. What is Oregon going up against?
I mean, this is probably the 8-9 game that I'm least excited about, if I'm going to be totally frank with you.
Okay.
I wasn't necessarily even sold as Virginia Tech as a tournament team. I think they're good. I think they're solid. I think kind of similarly about Oregon and Katie Fiso. She's great. But these are two teams that and I felt this way doing the top 25 all year too. It just feels wrong that they feel like bubble teams to me. And I know they're not. And I know the bubble teams, theoretically are just not as good as them, but that's kind of the level of game that this feels like. It feels like kind of a play-in game. But maybe they're in a worse position because the 8-9s then have to go play the 1s, and that's awful. But Virginia Tech is fun. They're very well coached. They've done a good job in their first couple of years there. They have talent. They were able to return a lot from last year. And this is a big game for them. This is one that they will be very motivated heading into this. I just, like I kind of mentioned earlier, the ACC, I think, and I mentioned this with the A10, I actually think the ACC prepares you less for the tournament than the A10 does. I think there are less strong teams in the ACC this year. So I'm not overly sold on this game as a really fun matchup. I think, the winner game could get interesting, but not even. I don't know.
That's fine. But I do think it's a game for Oregon to win. Looking statistically, when I was comparing them, they're very similar. Virginia Tech's a little bit better of a rebounding team, but Oregon's a better shooting team. I do think, obviously, rebounding is very important in the NCAA tournament because shooting sometimes doesn't travel, but rebounding always can. But I do think Oregon's got enough in the tank. I think Ahisa Tute is playing just outstanding basketball down the stretch of the season for the Ducks. I'll be honest, I like a lot of the matchups in the first round for the Big Ten. I think a lot of Big Ten teams are going to be moving on. I'm going to take Oregon in this one. But again, like you said, it makes a matchup with Texas next. It's not going to be easy. You just, when you're an 8-9, you're just kind of like, all right, let's win that first game. And then you're playing totally free house money on Sunday. See what you can do against Texas. But it's a tough draw to be in that 8-9. I did think overall, just a little bit to branch off, I thought the Big Ten, there was a lot of respect shown to the conference with how many hosting schools got in, which I guess only ended up being 5. We thought it was going to be 6, but still, Minnesota getting a hosting spot, Oregon being an 8, Illinois being a 7 with a 500 record in the Big Ten, USC being 17-13 overall in the season and being a 9 and not on the bubble because, again, they scheduled very difficult and they scheduled for Juju Watkins and then she wasn't there. But I thought overall the respect given to the Big Ten to say, hey, Oregon, you had an 8-10 record in this league, but you're comfortably off the bubble as an 8 seed. Hey, Nebraska, you were 7-11 in the Big Ten, but you're in the tournament. I thought overall the committee showed a lot of respect to the Big Ten, 1 seed, 2 seeds, like a lot of, hey, we see how difficult your league was this season.
Yeah, it's the Big Ten and SEC world right now that we live in. And I've said kind of all year, I think the Big Ten, I think the SEC is probably the better league at the top, and I think the Big Ten is the deepest league, which kind of showed in the amount of teams that got in and the seeding, right? Like that was kind of what we saw from that. There were a lot of hosting SEC teams. There are a lot of top seeds in the SEC, but there are so many Big Ten teams that were able to get into the tournament. So I think that is fun as we look for some upsets here and some more teams to advance.
All right, next one of the Big Ten, Washington against South Dakota State. Love when we get the Jackrabbits in the tournament. Friday afternoon, this is in Fort Worth, Texas. They are in the TCU pod. Washington's a team, another one like Oregon for me, that just the highs of Washington are so good, and the lows of Washington are so head-scratching. And this is a team that dominated Michigan back in early January, but it's a team that's also lost to Purdue. And so I have this like weird hard time figuring out what is Washington? What is the identity of this team? And then the way they played in Indianapolis, they absolutely took it to USC in the opening game. They were very competitive with UCLA in the second game of that tournament. I think when this team is clicking, they can give TCU a run for their money in the second round. But the issue is at times they're just not clicking. And so I don't know what to make of Washington. What do you make of this matchup?
So I'm writing something up actually now that I'm going to put out later today on my potential Cinderella teams of the tournament. And I know that doesn't happen a ton in women's basketball, but it's fun to theorize. And South Dakota State is on that list just because Washington, as you kind of alluded to, they're one of the more inconsistent teams in the country, I think. And like you said, when you get them good, you get them good. Like their guard play is so strong. I think they struggle in the post a little bit. And South Dakota State has one of the best post players in the nation in Brooklyn Myers. So I think South Dakota State does have a chance to pull this one off. But it depends what version of Washington we see, like you said.
Well, their three-point shooting is streaky, but when it is on, you've got Savia Sellers, Ella Dean, and Avery Howell who can really light it up from three. They shoot it much better than the Jackrabbits do. As South Dakota State is wrong. I was wrong. They are both good three-point shooting teams. I was reading the wrong one. But South Dakota State struggles defending the three-point line. That has been something. But one thing I look at when you're looking at upsets and underdogs and who could pull off upsets, South Dakota State does not foul. They are 11th best in the country in fouls per game, less than 13 a game. Now, not that Washington's a team that bangs down the door in terms of getting to the free throw line, but that is something when you're an underdog, don't give them the freebies at the free throw line. South Dakota State does not do that. I think this is a really compelling game. You mentioned Brooklyn Meyer down low, 22 points a game, a shot blocker, 65% from the floor. That's going to be a difficult matchup for Bryn McGoy, who I think has a bright future in Seattle. maybe not there totally right now, but I think she's played really well this season as a freshman. Yulia Grabovskaya does not give them a ton offensively, but can she be a presence defensively against Brooklyn Meyer? I think Avery Howell is, as always with a Washington game, she's the X factor. She does a lot of the dirty work. I just, every time I watch her play, I'm like, man, I want that girl on my team. Like, she is just a do-it-all Swiss Army knife, can shoot the ball, rebound the ball, play good defense. She's just very solid. One of the better pickups that was not talked about much in the portal. And I think she's a difference maker in this game. I think Washington survives, but I think this is a very interesting matchup.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's fun. And not that this would ever happen, but when I'm looking at brackets, I'm always, in this day and age, I'm always looking at for fun storylines. And where I go first is like transfers playing against their former team. And I think there's virtually no chance of this happening, but I believe it's in the Sweet 16 that Washington would theoretically face USC. And so I was looking at it. I think it would be fun. It won't happen, but storylines, right?
Always she fun. Played very well against them in the Big Ten tournament. Ella Dean played amazing in that game, and that was great to see because at times this season she's been very slow coming back from the injury that kept her out for the first portion of the season. It was great to see her kind of go off in that Big Ten tournament. All right, Maryland and Murray State is our next matchup. It's a 5-12 in the Chapel Hill Pod. Maryland's a team that, again, we kind of thought should have been a hosting school. So does that light a fire? I don't feel like you need to do much to light a fire under a Brenda Frese team, but I think the committee might have. When I look at NCAA tournament matchups, styles make good fights. And so I want to see opposing styles. I want to see a team that's slow and wants to wear you down against a team that wants to get up and down the floor. The issue in this one is this is two teams that want to get up and down the floor, and I don't think that's a good thing for Murray State because I think it's going to play right into the hands of Maryland, a team that wants to turn you over, wants to get moving. Alucia Kanawa, and the way she plays defense, she's going to create extra possessions if you're sloppy and you're trying to go too quick. Like Murray State. Murray State's one of the highest possession teams in the country. They have been for years now. So I do think this is a tough matchup for Murray State, and I think it's one that Maryland will thrive off of.
I think it should be fun. I'm also just looking at your graphic now and I'm going, ooh, it's the battle of the M logos. I love it. It's fun. But no, I think Murray State has been a really fun team to follow this year. Hallie Pook is fantastic. They're very well coached. But yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to be too competitive in the sense that I just think Maryland is very clearly the better team. They haven't been the most consistent, like we've talked about with some other Big Ten teams. But when it comes to March, I would put my life on the line that Brenda Frese will get this team through the first round. So
totally agree. And you mentioned Hallie Pook, 22.5 a game for her this season. And then Sharnice Curry-Jelks, who comes over from Indiana, averaging a double-double, 17.7. Go ahead.
Storyline, Yardinger's on Sharnice. Let's make it happen.
I have this feeling that Brenda Frese is going to have an answer for Curry-Jelks. Not that Maryland is big and not like Izzy Mamadou can certainly be solid in the post, but I think we've seen Curry-Jelks at the Big Ten level and it hasn't necessarily worked. Good for her that she has found this success with Murray State. Not everybody is meant to be like that. This is why the transfer portal exists. Like, she has found a home where she's been terrific with Murray State. So she'll get another crack at the Big Ten here. Murray State defensively, just they give up over 73 points a game. Both teams average over 82 a game. Murray State gets to the free throw line a lot, so Maryland's going to have to be ready for that. But again, it's styles that are very similar. And I think if you're going to play the same way, I'm going to favor the favorite. And I think Maryland will get that done. We're going in chronological order here, by the way. So the next one is Friday afternoon, Holy Cross against Michigan. Look, I'm just putting this up here. Michigan's not going to lose to Holy Cross. I'm not worried about this one. I have like no notes for some of these matchups. Like Michigan's moving on. Just give this the opportunity, Talia. How deep can Michigan go? Their bracket, they're obviously hosting in the first two rounds. NC State and Tennessee are in their pod. The 3 seed is Louisville as a potential Sweet 16. The 1 seed is Texas. How deep can this Michigan team go?
I mean, theoretically they could make a Final Four. I don't think they will. It's weird because if they make it past the second round, I think they'll make it past Louisville, I think. But
Okay.
I think the second round game could trip them up. I don't know. These are two kind of teams who have been streaky. Tennessee is way more talented than they've played. And I have a feeling they're kind of searching for some revenge for getting that 10 seed. And I think the 10 seed is lower than or higher. I never know how to talk about seed. It's a higher number seed than I thought they would get.
A worse seed.
A worse seed, yes. A worse seed than I thought they would get. And so I think they're going to be really hungry to win that first round matchup. And if they do, like, if they can shoot the ball well, like, sky's the limit. Not really, but they could theoretically make it past Michigan there. But if they make it past that, I think they have the edge over Louisville. Who would they play after that?
Texas, probably.
Oh, they would play Texas after that?
Yeah, so I think Michigan has Final Four ceiling, but I don't love their matchup with Texas. I think that the guards of Texas will be able to, like what we've seen with Iowa. Iowa's a bad matchup for Michigan because Iowa's guards have been able to take Michigan's guards out of the game, and then it becomes a post contest, and Iowa's always going to win that against Michigan, who actually Sofocanic has been good and better than what they had last season, which was almost nothing, but they still don't have a ton in the post. And so I think that eventually that will get them at some point. But Iowa's unique. They have very good defensive guards. Texas has elite defensive guards. So I do think that will be very difficult for Michigan. I do think I have them in my bracket going to that Elite Eight matchup and losing to Texas. Minnesota, one of the final hosting schools. You said you're excited about this matchup with Wisconsin Green Bay, who, as they pointed out on the selection show, made it through a snowstorm to get to their watch party. I don't think that's anything new for the folks of Green Bay, Wisconsin. But they are taking on Minnesota. The Barn is hosting NCAA tournament games, which is super cool. I'm sure the environment's going to be, when that place is full, the environment there is incredible. I'm sure it will be. It's really fun. And we've had a couple of times there that have drawn good crowds, and it's a very fun atmosphere. I'm sure it's going to be lively on Friday evening. You mentioned this right off the top, that this is a fun matchup that you're looking at. So give us the lowdown on Green Bay, Minnesota.
Well, you know by now that I love a good storyline, and so my storyline of choice here is that it's Dawn playing against her former assistant coach, Kayla Carius, who was with her when she was at South Dakota and has done just such a phenomenal job since taking over there. I think you'll start seeing Kayla Carius on lists again for getting bigger jobs very soon. So the job she's done there, keeping Green Bay at an elite level as a consistent, tournament threat, has been really impressive to me. So I think just the storyline of it all is really fun. I think Minnesota should be able to win this one, but I just think it's a cool game in terms of connections, in terms of Green Bay being able to make it and maintain that level of success.
So this one to me is similar to the Maryland-Murray State game on the opposite spectrum. Both teams are very methodical. Both teams are slow, low possession. And again, I think if you're going to beat Minnesota, you're going to have to play against their game. Like, you can't just play to this slow, low-paced game, because Minnesota will take that and run with it. They're one of the best defensive teams in the country. They've been one of the best in the Big Ten all season. So if you want to play a race to 60, 65, Minnesota will gladly win that game. Minnesota is a better shooting team. They do both struggle defensively against the three-point shot, which I remember prepping for Minnesota and saying, okay, this is the way you beat Minnesota, is by getting three-pointers up. And then we didn't get any three-pointers up, but it's easier said than done. Minnesota is a much better rebounding team, especially on the offensive glass. This is a really good offensive rebounding Minnesota team. And it's not just the size of Sophie Hart and Finau Tonga. Amaya Battle is a really good rebounding guard. Grace Grahalski is a really, really good rebounding guard. This is a Minnesota team that's just kind of greater, like, the sum of their parts is what makes them so good. They don't have anybody on the first team, all Big Ten, but they just, everything comes together really well for Minnesota. They know their roles. Everybody plays a part in it. They're great defensively. It's a pain in the butt to play a Don Putzwhite Minnesota team, and I think they will win this game. I think it will be low scoring. I think they'll win it by 10 to 15 points, and that'll feel further away than maybe the final score was, just because I think this will be a low possession game. But it is always fun when you get two coaches who are very connected like these two are. We'll see who gets the better of the other one. All right, still on Friday, Michigan State, Colorado State, Friday night in Norman, Oklahoma. Bless you. Winner probably gets Oklahoma. Colorado State without their leading scorer, Alexis Bargesser, another former Hoosier who has transferred over to Colorado State, had a terrific season. I'm really excited that she had that. Always loved working with Lexus, but really bummed to see that she got hurt again in the Mountain West tournament. They end up winning the tournament, but they're down their leading scorer who averaged 15 points a game this season. So when I was looking at this stylistically, this is one that I was really intrigued by because this is a Colorado State team that wants to slow the game down and really milk the clock against a Michigan State team that wants to get up and down the floor, but at times can be a little chaotic and a little bit out of control and a little bit turnover prone. And then you see the injuries, and it's just I think it's too much for Colorado State to climb.
I'm with you on that one. It sucks that Lexus got hurt again because I really think this could have been a really fun matchup. I mean, the Mountain West has been really fun to watch all year. Actually has a few other former Hoosiers, I believe,
it does.
which is fun. But yeah, no, that was just an awful injury and such a sad way to end the year for her. And yeah, I think it's Michigan State's game to lose here.
Yeah, one matchup statistically to look at, Michigan State forces 20 turnovers a game. They're very good at that defensively. Colorado State, best in the country, 10 turnovers a game. So now Lexus is your point guard. She's the leading scorer. She's got the ball in her hands. That's not an option anymore. So that certainly changes that aspect of it. I do think one thing, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but one thing that's important in the NCAA tournament, you're going to get officials and refs that ref differently than maybe what you've gotten used to in your conference. And so like Michigan State's a team, for example, that I tend to sometimes get frustrated when we play teams like Michigan State or Maryland or Ohio State, whose brand is to be physical defensively. And so I think they get away with a lot in the Big Ten in terms of their handiness, in terms of the way they defend. And so I'm curious in the NCAA tournament, how does that go? Do they get away with that same kind of hand checking in your grill defensively, or do they get called for that kind of stuff and get in foul trouble? That's something to watch for. Dalton did say he's going to prepare a little preview video we're going to put out on socials, hopefully tomorrow, as he breaks down not only this matchup, but the Norman pod in general. So we'll get that out on socials when we can. That's an interesting matchup with them against Oklahoma, because I do still think Michigan State at its best is a team capable of making the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. We just haven't seen that best enough down the stretch of the season. And so, like, they were awesome at the barn when they beat Minnesota by double figures. And it's like, okay, that's it. Like, that's the team that we're trying to find here. But more often than not, they have been on the wrong side of a lot of these games coming down the stretch.
Yeah, I think if it ends up being even remotely a close game with Oklahoma, I'd give Oklahoma the edge just because of what they've been able to do in big moments and how they've been able to pull games out. I think there's a world in which Michigan State comes out really hot and is able to separate early. But more than likely, I see it being, maybe not right down the wire, but a close game. And I see Oklahoma with their post play. They have Reagan Beers, obviously Aaliyah Chavez, what she's been able to do in her rookie year and how much freedom they give her and how she's able to come through. Like, I'd probably take Oklahoma in that one.
Reagan Beers is the difference. Like, I don't know what you do Michigan State defensively. Like, I would assume they're going to try and put Iselin Alexander in the game a decent amount to throw a bigger body at her. Because I don't think you can't get Grace Van Sluten in foul trouble. And I think that's an easy matchup to get in foul trouble, her against Beers. So that'll be an interesting matchup. Obviously, Kennedy Blair is the do-it-all guard for Michigan State and X factor. But I think Rashonda Jones is the real X factor for Michigan State. When she plays well, this team typically plays well. She's a big part of the engine for Michigan State. All right, Saturday's games. Ohio State, Howard, not a ton here. I think Ohio State's moving on, and there's this portion of the bracket.
I don't know who they'll be playing though in the second round. I don't know which one they'll be playing.
That is very true. The Fairfield Notre Dame matchup is awesome, and I think that's going to be must-watch TV. But this regional one has some of the best scorers in the game of college basketball, and the Sweet 16 matchup that I am dying for is Jelani Cambridge against Michaela Blakes. I am dying for it. I think it would be so much fun.
I think so too. Jelani has gone really under the radar this year for
I have
some
no
reason.
idea how. I've got the
Right.
Jelani Cambridge pom-poms every
I
week
know.
here on this podcast.
I think it's nuts to me because, like, I could see it if kind of like everyone thought Ohio State was going to be like a fringe top 25-ish team
Mm-hmm.
heading into this year, but they're not. Like, they're
No.
not. They're a really good team.
And because
And
of her,
right.
because of
She
what
does
she's
it all.
done, the jump
Exactly.
she's made from last season where she was an elite speedy guard who could get to the basket. But this season, she's added the 3-point shot more consistently. Now you have to respect that, which allows her to drive to the basket. She's great dishing out the ball with over 5 assists a game in Big Ten play. She rebounds it well. She plays good enough defense for her caliber of player. And I voted for her for Big Ten Player of the Year. We're not going to go down that road again.
I would
I've had that conversation, but I want that Sweet 16 matchup because Vandy has so many things they can throw at you, but Ohio State has one of the best scorers in the country. That is such a fascinating matchup.
I would bet that matchup will happen. I have Fairfield getting the upset in that first round against Notre Dame. I think it's the year
really shoot it.
They can really shoot it just like Richmond does. But they didn't against Fairfield. Fairfield they're so much better defensively this year than they've been in the past, which I think is the difference and why, I've seen Fairfield at least two. It might have been the last 3 times they've been in the tournament. One was at Indiana. I know I saw them last year at Kentucky. And I think I saw them lose by like what must have been a combined 100 points. It was bad. It was ugly. I think this year is different. And I've said that each year, but I think this year is different. I think it's a good matchup for them. So Ohio State Fairfield could end up being a really fun game. Also, Ohio State Notre Dame, obviously with Hannah Hidalgo. But
the Hannah Hidalgo matchup against the Ohio State, that's 2 teams that play ultra aggressive defensively, like Kennedy Cambridge against Hannah Hidalgo and their active hands. That could be a lot of fun as well.
I'm advocating. Obviously, I don't have like a horse in the game, whatever, but like I love the mid-major love. And so I'd love to see at least, one good mid-major advance this year. I think it would be really good for the game. And I do think there's more parity at that level. I think obviously you look to what the Final Four is expected to be, and I don't think there's a lot of parity there, but below it, I think there's so much.
I remember when Fairfield came here 2 years ago and I was prepping for them going, man, this team's good. Like I was a little, and Indiana handled them and it was not a close game, but they've gotten better. And like, even then I was like, man, this team's got like, it's a team. They play well. Like and I think that's a great matchup. And for them to get an 11 seed too is really good on Fairfield for what they've done. Is she going to be a hot commodity for coaching jobs?
She has turned down every job. Every job is like, she's the top of everyone's list. Every opening is like, yeah, we'll give her a call first. Nope. I want to stay at Fairfield. She has no like desire to leave from what I've heard. If there's, maybe there's a job she's holding out for, but it's none that, were on the market last year or have been this year. So
good to know. All right. Well, there you go. Talia's got a good in on that kind of stuff for sure. So Ohio State moving on, could have a matchup with Vandy. Do you think they can beat Vandy?
No.
Okay.
I mean, well, Vanderbilt has had some questionable performances. I think it's really matchup oriented for them because you see them against Ole Miss, and I think Vanderbilt is better than Ole Miss, but it's a bad, kind of like a Michigan, Iowa type of, it's just a bad matchup for them. So I'm curious to see what that'll look like. I mean, they were in the same place, right, at that neutral site thing, and I wish they'd played each other there. But it would be fun. I think Vanderbilt just is more complete right now and is riding kind of a high. And I think Aubrey Galvin is so underrated that I think they would be able to make it past him. But and selfishly, I think everyone wants to see Gino versus Shea Ralph in that Elite Eight. They set that up on purpose for sure. But I think it will be closer than people think.
I think Ohio State, the big thing for them is get out of the pod. They've had some issues when they've hosted the last couple of times. You think about when they were a 2 seed and Duke took them out, and then they were a 4 seed last season and lost, I believe, was it Tennessee? Came in there and beat them last season, I think. So I think it was 2023, 22 when they went on that run to the Elite Eight, beat UConn. So let's see if they can get back to something like that. This team's really good, and Jelani Cambridge steers the ship. All right, interesting 8-9 USC Clemson. Your face lit up when I put this graphic on the screen. I'll let you have the floor. What is so enticing about seeing the Tigers and the Trojans?
It's so fun, and it's more just like the fact that whoever wins obviously plays South Carolina, and it's a matchup that has already happened this year that we're both like, I mean, Clemson kind of kept it close to South Carolina for a while. USC didn't, but we get like potentially the battle of SC again. So I'm just really excited because I think Clemson, like I said, I thought they were going to be a 10. They come in as an 8, which is shocking to me. And I think it's a good matchup for them against USC. I think, Sean Poppy's done a phenomenal job. They have a talented, kind of gritty, underrated team. But USC can kind of get hot, like they can. And obviously, Jazzy Davidson is must-watch TV at all times. And Kennedy Smith is phenomenal on the defensive end. And Lindsey Gottlieb has just, riding the high of bringing in like the top recruiting class in the country. So like this team is they've got some momentum in other areas right now, just besides what they're doing with the court. And I just saw them play pretty recently at Ohio State, and they lost that game, but they were really impressive. Like they looked better than I thought. They came across on TV sometimes, like just body language wise, just like Jazzy Davidson crying after the loss and caring that much. Like, I don't know. I got a really good feeling about it. So I just think this could be like a really enticing 8-9 matchup.
I've been a little down on USC. Ever since I saw them in person, and I just wasn't blown away. And then I watched them again in person in Indianapolis. And yes, it's a noon Eastern time game. They came out slow. They were not good in that game at all. But there's just so much they ask of Jazzy Davidson. And if she has a great game, then she can lead this team. But if she's a little bit off, then things become a little bit tough. These are two teams that don't score a ton of points. Expect this to be kind of a rock fight unless one team gets hot. But I kind of figured this is going to be more of a 68-65 kind of game. Clemson, I think this is something that's noteworthy. They do a good job of not putting their opponents on the free throw line. Maybe I'm skewed, but I watched USC take 36 free throws against Indiana. So, like, this is a team that wants to get to the free throw line. They played through Kennedy Smith and Jazzy Davidson inside. So if Clemson can do a good job of keeping them off the free throw line, I think that's a big thing. USC is pretty active defensively with their hands, averaging over 17 turnovers a game from their opponents. Clemson, very good with the basketball, less than 13 turnovers a game. So I think this is a good clash, two styles that I think will make for a good fight. I think USC wins it because they have the best player on the floor. And sometimes in the NCAA tournament, that matters. Like, it's kind of like the A.J. Debonsa BYU situation. Like, they've got the best player on the floor. I think that's good for a win. I think Jazzy Davidson's the best player on the floor here. I think it's good enough for a win. And then, obviously, they got to play South Carolina next. But I do think Jazzy Davidson will be enough for USC to win this game.
See, Clemson.
You're taking Clemson?
Well, so Clemson, not necessarily style-wise, but just as a group of players, reminds me kind of a lot of what Texas Tech has been able to do this season. Bunch of ragtag kids from places you haven't heard of, put them together and they all just work, right? There's not a star on that team, like you said. Obviously, Jazzy Davidson is a star, but they all mesh well. A lot of still, I think 2 kids that Poppy brought over from Chattanooga with him who know how he likes to play, who've kind of been in this. I don't know if they get the win, but I think it will be competitive. They've had really competitive games this year. I'm pretty sure they beat Duke just like a month ago. And they were even competitive against South Carolina when they played them through that first half. And I believe they were last year when they played them too. It wasn't terrible. There's no shot they win that game, but I think they have a chance. Like, this is a true 8-9 to me, where I think either team could win by 2 points.
And to be fair, I think USC was even in that South Carolina game going into the fourth quarter, and then South Carolina kind of stepped on them in the fourth. But I mean, look, we've seen South Carolina at times have struggles early in the tournament, and then they kind of get going. Like last season, I believe Indiana was leading at the halftime of that game. Obviously, Indiana gave them a run for their. Go ahead. What did you say?
Sydney Parrish jinxed them on that one. I think she was talking about that game before the tournament even started, I think. And so everyone, there was a lot of motivation.
It's nice that, like, Indiana's not the tournament, but it's nice I don't have to prepare for an Indiana-South Carolina game this season. 2 years in a row, our season's come to an end against Don Staley. But I'm not saying either of these teams is going to win, but I do think that they can, that their styles and their defensive strengths can at least hold South Carolina down for a little bit. I don't think they're going to win. Let's keep it rolling. This is a quick one. Iowa, Fairleigh Dickinson. Don't think there's any magic for FDU on the women's side here.
Very well coached. Very well
But I'm
coached team.
curious your thoughts, Talia, on Iowa, because Dalton and I have wrestled with Iowa all season.
Yeah.
We have been low on them, but then they just continue to do things, and it's like, gosh, we got to be higher on this team. I still think they're a little susceptible to an upset, but this team's really good, and Jan Jensen's done a terrific job with them, and they seem to be like ready for a run. I just don't know what their ceiling is.
I'm going to give you a weird analogy here. Iowa as a team reminds me of Madison Booker as a player in that, like, she can score 20 something points and you don't even notice she did it. That's kind of what Iowa is to me. Like, they can win, 8 games in a row against, 5 really good teams. And I didn't even really like put it together that they did that. Yeah. And so they just are very like nonchalant about what they've been going about their business this season. I feel like they did have a couple, rough losses. Obviously the USC one wasn't great. But I like them. I think they're fun. I think Jan Jensen has done a really good job of developing her young talent, which, not a lot of teams are able to retain as much as they have. And Chit Chat when she's hot is really, really fun to watch.
Yep.
So I think, obviously I don't think they'll have any trouble getting past FDU. I'm going to look I don't remember.
Georgia, I believe, is third.
If it's Georgia, I another one of my Cinderellas is Arizona State. Never know. But I think either one could be fun. I don't think either one beats Iowa. I think Iowa got kind of a good draw there, but it'll be a fun matchup no matter who they play.
The 3 seed is TCU, by the way, in their potential Sweet 16.
Now that's a team inconsistent, but when they're at their best, yeah, they can beat almost anybody in the country. I would have probably TCU over Iowa in that case.
I do too, and Iowa fans are going to be annoyed. You say they're nonchalant. The team may be nonchalant. The fan base is not nonchalant. It's a very passionate fan base, which is great. We love that, and I'm sure Carver Hawkeye is going to be on fire this weekend for some more hosting opportunities. It's incredible what Jan Jensen has done in her 2 seasons. To think back about mid-January last year, they were sitting at, I think, 2-6 in the Big Ten. They were reeling. They were struggling. She figured it out, turned them into a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament, and now this season they're hosting. And their recruiting continues to be good. Like there's no sign of Iowa taking a step back anytime soon. You did mention USC, by the way. Sarah, what is it, Okeke? She is going to USC. Announced that yesterday. So she's fantastic. That was a bummer. We were hoping to land her here in Bloomington, but yeah, going to USC. It's going to be another addition to what's already a loaded team next season for Lindsey Gottlieb. Last, I think, competitive one of the Big Ten, Illinois, Colorado. This Illinois team has been just really solid this season. They were hit early before the season even started with a couple of injuries that knocked 2 players out for the year before the season even began. Gretchen Dolan has gone down with an injury. That seems to be like a Shauna Green thing right now, is her teams play hard, her teams play tough. They're always shorthanded. And so they're a little shorthanded again, but I love Destiny Jackson. I love Sierra Parchment. Those two just play great basketball. Jasmine Brown-Haggard's a do-everything type of player. Barry Wallace has really grown this season. So I like Illinois. I've enjoyed watching them this season. So I think they're going to win this game. They're a higher scoring team than Colorado. They shoot it. Colorado's a terrible shooting team. 27% from the 3-point line is not going to get it done in the NCAA tournament. When I looked at their stat sheet, nothing lit up. Like nothing was like, oh, Colorado does this really well. So to me, I just think Illinois is a really solid team. They have the experience of getting that win last season in the NCAA tournament. I think they'll use that and they'll win this one as well.
Yeah, Colorado. Why am I saying Gonzaga? Colorado was able to gut out a couple wins in the Big 12 tournament that I saw. I mean, I was impressed with the mentality of it more than what I saw on the court. Yeah. I think Illinois, I have Illinois winning this one. I think probably just more talented this year. But Colorado is really well coached. They do have like some kids who will fight it out. I actually saw them twice this year. I saw them at Louisville too, which was a close game early in the year. And I was probably more impressed with them then than I was last week. But I like, it could be a fairly they're decent defensively. They are. I know like the numbers maybe don't jump off, but like it's more of like a mentality kind of thing, like, than anything to me. I don't think they'll win, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did. Like, it's not, this is what, a 10-7. I
Yeah,
wouldn't be like super shocked if they were able to pull out the win, especially on a neutral court. But I think it's an interesting game. I don't know.
I agree. And I look forward to, and I don't think Illinois will beat Vanderbilt, but the amount of talented freshmen on the floor together in that game between Illinois and Vandy will be a lot of fun to watch, and see how much young talent there is playing against each other in that game would be a lot of fun. That's late night on Saturday. And the latest game on Saturday is upset alert for the UCLA Bruins as they play the Lancers of Cal Baptist. Just kidding. This is a great opportunity now for me to ask you, as we get through all these matchups, can UCLA, are they your national champions? If you were to fill out the bracket right now, I know you still have 2 days. Are they your national champions?
I filled out 2 brackets. One of them, I know you're only supposed to fill out one. Tyrese Halliburton went out saying it. I know, but I filled out 2. One, I had UConn as the national champion. One, I had UCLA as the national champion. Not a lot changed other than that in both of my brackets. I think if there's a team that can beat UConn, it's UCLA. I think Texas, if they play like they did in the SEC tournament, could as well. But I think UCLA has the best shot of it. They're just such a veteran team. They have potentially 6 kids who will hear their name called and be drafted this year. And this is the year they have to do it if they want to. Like, this is their last year with this senior class, and they know that. So they're going to be really, really motivated. Their path is so tough. I think they have the toughest path of any 1 seed to get to the Final Four. So we'll have to kind of see what happens. Obviously, having Duke as the 3 seed and LSU as the 2 seed there, like, both of those teams you could have argued could be a spot higher. I mean, I don't think you'd have LSU as a 1 seed, but I think they're kind of in a similar tier with them. So I just think it's a really tough region they've got there. Could see a couple upsets in kind of the 6-11, 5-12 games there. Even like the winner of Oklahoma State Princeton is a tough game. Like, that's a really fun game against UCLA. I don't know. So I think they'll be able to make it to the Final Four at the very least. And then we'll have to see what happens.
It's so weird with the way that the brackets are now and how many teams come from each conference. It's unavoidable. But like Minnesota and UCLA would be the seeded matchup in the Sweet 16. Like, that's just weird. I don't like that. Minnesota was competitive, but not really that close to beating UCLA in the barn back in, I think, late January. So, I like Duke getting to the Elite 8. I have Duke playing UCLA. UCLA throttled them in Vegas, but that was a very different Duke team than the Duke team that's currently playing right now. They have really turned their season around. And then a potential rematch in the Final Four for UCLA. They could go back-to-back Vegas rematches with Duke in the Elite 8 and Texas in the Final Four, the one team that has beaten UCLA because their guards sped up UCLA's guards in the first half, turned them over a bunch. UCLA seemed to figure it out in the second half, specifically in the fourth quarter, but ran out of time in their comeback efforts. I believe I think it might have been Jaquez, had a 3-pointer down 4 to cut it to 1, maybe.
It was 4. They cut it to 4. Yeah, they cut it to 4,
okay.
And then the fouling started.
Yeah,
and then it was over, and it ended up being an 11-point game. I think.
know from talking to people in that program, they are excited for a potential opportunity to play Texas again, and to show how much they've grown, because Texas kind of did what UConn did to them last season, and UCLA wants to prove, hey, we can win those games. So, like you said, that's a tough path. They might have to play Duke or LSU, Texas, and UConn to win the national title. It's never easy to win a national title, though. So UCLA will, they are my national champions. I'm blown away every time I watch them play. I don't know how you stop them. Okay. So I'm very curious. I want all of those matchups because I want to see how all those teams face UCLA. I think it's going to be fun. Anything else? So you're national champion. You don't even have one. You're just toggling in between 2 different champions.
Yeah. And I do think there's actually a legitimate, case for Texas as well. I don't know if I have South Carolina in that same tier just from seeing them play 3 or 4 times this year. Texas at their best, I think, can do it. UCLA, I think, can do it. UConn obviously can do it. So yeah, those are kind of my 3 real options. I don't think there's a ton of parity at the top right now. So I think one of those 3 will be our national champion this year.
Yeah, my bold prediction is I have TCU beating South Carolina and Iowa and getting into the Final Four.
Interesting. I don't know if they can pull together that many great performances. I think they have a few in them, but we'll have to see. I mean, they were able to make the Elite Eight last year. Really,
I wanted to do
impressive.
something fun, and I think South Carolina is the quote unquote weakest of the 1 seeds. I did have somebody ask if, and I'm curious where you stand. Where do you stand on NCAA tournament expansion? Because I have thoughts on it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we agree with this.
Yeah. I think we even mentioned like the bubble was pretty weak this year. I don't need more.
No.
I don't need more.
So we had one of our big followers on X asked me, I think he's the Llama is his X account. And he was saying like, if we get more teams in, then we can get more mid-majors in, we can get teams like Indiana in. And I'm like, okay, hold on. So 2 things. I work for Indiana, so I have to tread lightly here.
Yeah.
Indiana was close. And I like, look, they and Nebraska's resumes are weirdly similar. Just throwing that out there. However, Indiana was not a tournament team. This tournament did not need Indiana in it to be better. Like, do I want Indiana to make the tournament every year? Obviously, I do. But this tournament didn't need Indiana. This tournament didn't need 8 more bubble teams in it. And
I could have done with a couple more mid-majors in there. I wouldn't have complained, but that would never be what would happen.
That's the thing. We say, let's open it up so more mid-majors can get in. That will never happen. Like, look at the men's side. We would have just put Auburn in. We would have put Cal in. We would have just put all these Power 4 teams in. It wouldn't have been mid-majors. So that's the thing is like, in theory, yeah, let's get more mid-majors in there. We don't need that. We don't need more games. We have enough. The tournament works. Why would we mess with something that's really fun and works really well? Like I watched that first 4 game last night between Texas and NC State, and the ending was awesome. But to get there, we had to watch some pretty bad basketball for about 35 minutes. Like, do we really need more of that bad basketball in the tournament? Like, I don't think
I'm good with what we got. I'm good with what we got.
So, glad to know that we're on the same page there. Anything else while we have you here? Anything popping off in the portal right now? Like I know you've been on that. You do a great job. You're my biggest resource on the transfer portal. Anything that like I think didn't you say like Madison St. Rose is one that might consider that, or she's going to? Yeah,
she's in the portal. Yeah, because she's a grad and she can't play her 5th year at an Ivy.
Yep.
So she is already in the portal, and I'm sure figuring it all out now, which is crazy because obviously they're in the tournament, going to play a couple games maybe. But yeah, she'll end up at a phenomenal school. She absolutely will.
That's gonna be a really good one. And then the Rutgers hired a head coach. What were your thoughts of that coming over from LSU?
I thought it was a really interesting hire. I think Gary is an elite recruiter, obviously one of the best in the country. He has the relationships to get some really good talent there. Obviously, we haven't seen him ever in a head coaching role. So I think I'm just more intrigued what that's going to look like, how he's going to build up his staff. I know they announced one member of LSU staff is following him there. So that's great. I would expect like a couple others to maybe be in the mix, like his sister, and Roman over at Tennessee is a possibility. I don't know. I'm curious to see how he builds out his staff to help more on like the X's and O's side of things, because he has been so focused on, the recruiting for so long, and he's been so elite at it. But I think more than anything, it's just he has been able to garner excitement around that program again for the first time in a while. So I think it should be fun to see what that looks like next year.
And what kind of resources that he can get there at Rutgers is going to be important as well. And then one final one is that there's rumors that Northwestern is going after that the Alabama head coach has interest in Northwestern. What's the connection there that maybe I don't know? Is there one?
I can't give you much on that one. I think we'll figure that out soon.
Okay. Very good. Well, there's that like we've said, Dalton and I have said, we're going to attack new coaches and transfer portal and stuff once we get through the NCAA tournament. We obviously have so much with 12 teams in it. I think we're going to have teams playing for the next 3 weeks here in the NCAA tournament. So plenty to talk about. Talia, thank you so much for jumping in on short notice. We really appreciate it. And over an hour of your time with us. You are you're so great covering the game. We appreciate all that you do, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
That was Talia Goodman from On3. If you missed any of our episodes, we are on the Back Home Network YouTube channel and on Apple and Spotify podcasts. Good luck to Dalton and his Spartans in Norman, Oklahoma this weekend. Winning that pot and going to the Sweet 16. But for Talia Goodman, I'm Austin Renner. This has been episode 94 of the Dribble Drive Podcast.